Hello, bearded bee people. A lot of questions I get are money related, whether it's on the investment and getting into beekeeping or how to make money from your bees, how to build an operation with the goal of making money. So I decided to make it into a video, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Firstly, beekeeping is not a cheap hobby to get into. Obviously, you've got a lot of equipment to purchase and bees to purchase, protective stuff, smokers, all that kind of stuff, and you've got to get all that up front. So generally, within that first year or so, the whole concept of making money from your bees is sort of laughable. I mean, obviously you can sell some honey and you can sell some wax, but generally when we get into bees for those first couple of years, we're so excited about that honey that giving it away and eating it on everything is usually what we do with it. So if you're just getting into it the first couple of years, I would say hold off on trying to make money from your bees and trying to make your investment back. Enjoy those first couple of years. Learn all you can. Enjoy the heck out of that honey and gift it to your friends and family. That's really, really super rewarding way to deal with your first hive profits. And then you can get into actually making money and making your investment back when it's a little bit easier, when your bees are more established. So the first tip that I have, and this is a really important one, is figure out where you want your operation to be size-wise and get there. Because of the fact that if you have 5 colonies and you really want 50, but you're also trying to make money and you're selling nukes, you're likely to shoot yourself in the foot. And I mean, on paper it works. You know, you can sell just a couple and you'll have a couple left over for yourself to build every year. But beekeeping is really, really difficult to predict, and doing it like that with such tight margins, especially as a beginner, is very difficult, and you're likely to have some hurdles and have some difficult years in trying to grow your operation and sell nukes. So grow your operation first. Figure out exactly or generally where you want your operation to be and work toward getting there. During this process, you can sell honey and you can sell wax, and you can sell propolis, any type of hive product. I'm just saying don't sell your bees while you're trying to make more bees for yourself, because even though there's a lot of money to be made in that, it's very, very difficult to grow and sell nukes at the same time. The second tip, and it's not really a tip, it's more of a beekeeping mindset, is that your bees have to be healthy. So that means at the beginning of the year, you're making all these plans for all these splits that you're going to do and all of the things that you're going to sell and all the money that you're going to make. In a lot of cases, what we don't end up planning for are the massive amounts of sugar we're going to need at the end of the year, or all of the rounds of treatment, especially if you're treating with like formic acid, which can tend to get quite expensive and sometimes difficult to find at specific parts of the year. It is very, very important that these are number one in your year planning, meetings when you're trying to figure out where your money is going to go and the things that you're going to purchase to make this year happen. You have to be taking into account all the sugar that you're going to need, all the treatments that you're going to need. Is your equipment where it needs to be? Are you going to need more supers? All this stuff needs to be taken into account before you start thinking about splitting hives and buying bottles and labels and all this stuff for honey, because dead bees don't make honey, and if you don't have supers to put the honey in, you're never going to get it from the supers into the jars. So try very much to err on the side of too much in these cases, because it's a rare thing for me and for a lot of other beekeepers that I know to go through the year without having some emergency purchases. So really, really try to minimize the amount of last-second big money purchases that you have to do throughout the bee year. As your operation is growing, you're going to make a lot of honey, and you're hopefully going to be making, your splits and having successful years. But my point is here, this honey, this early honey, needs to find a local market. And I mean, obviously you're going to gift a lot to your friends and family, but then when you do have that extra honey, rather than sitting around having some Facebook ads or Craigslist ads, or maybe you're visiting a farmer's market, it's really important to craft a local customer base, because these people are going to be integral in your operation going forward. Firstly, they're certainly going to tell you that your honey is the best honey that they've ever tasted, and they're not lying to you. It's a lot of people haven't had raw honey directly from the hive, So these people are going to be hooked, and they're going to tell their friends, and they're going to bring their friends to your bee yard if you allow them to show them the bees, and they're going to be future customers, whether that's for wax or honey or bees. They'll also tip you off to swarm calls, and when their neighbors have some bees going in and out of their barn, you get all those calls from these people. So craft this local customer base and do everything you can to go out of your way to make these people happy. And whether that's meeting them with honey or delivering honey to their door, these people are going to be integral in your operation. As your operation grows and you need more spaces to put bees, these people are going to be integral in that as well. They'll have ideas of where you can put bees. They'll have friends, or maybe they'll have a piece of property that they're okay with having some bees on. Either way, work hard while you're growing this operation to sell as much honey at as high of a price as you can. I'm not talking about lowering your prices to make these people happy. Sell it at market rate, or even a little bit higher than market rate, because you will sell it and these people will love it, and they will sell, or they will bring this news to their friends and family. So craft this local customer base, sell it for as high as you can, go out of your way to meet these people and make these people happy, because they will be integral in your money-making operations going forward. Hopefully you have an idea of your desired profit source from your bees while you're growing your operation. Maybe you've come to really, really like making nukes and watching them grow, or maybe making queens is your passion, the way it was for me. Or maybe honey is just your favorite food of all time and you really want to be a large honey producer. Either way, once your operation nears its eventual size, you really should start to make plans to specialize in one or a couple of these areas. Trying to do all of them is very, very difficult. Even making queens and selling honey is a difficult and slightly incompatible set of profit sources, just because of the fact that making good quality queens takes a lot of bees, and making a lot of honey takes a lot of bees, and you're dividing your resources towards these goals, which can stunt your growth in these respective areas. If honey is your profit source of choice, I highly recommend, as you can throughout the growing process, to acquire as good of honey equipment as you can. Obviously, make your beginner extractor last as long as it possibly can, but investing in comb honey setups and maybe purchasing some honey straws and labels and all this kind of stuff is really going to make the growth of your honey operation go a lot smoother, because it's tough to get into stores and stuff with mason jars, and it's also tough to get into stores if there is already honey in those stores. But a lot of the honey producers don't also produce creamed honey or comb honey. So if you do all of those things, you'll really be a step ahead of your competitors in your local market. If selling nukes are your profit source of choice, my recommendation to you is, during those first couple of years, don't take pre-orders. You're still going to sell a lot or all of your nukes, because there will be a lot of people that didn't know they were looking for bees at that time of year. And you can even tell people, hey, you don't necessarily have to order bees. I will have them available in June. I'm just not taking pre-orders. And that will avoid a situation where you had a harsher winter than you'd expected and you have a bunch of nukes that people are expecting and counting on. That's a bad situation to be in, so avoid it by not taking pre-orders until you are aware of exactly what you can do and you're taking into account all the possible things that can go wrong. Also, don't let these little splits make queens. I'm sure you guys are mostly familiar with some of the online beekeeping groups, and you'll see a lot of the complaints that people have in June and July about the nukes that they purchased from their local nuke providers. Don't be one of those people. Don't be giving them those little skinny queens that 3-frame splits create. Either be grafting queen cells or purchasing queen cells from a local queen provider, so that you can be providing some big, fat, productive queens for these nukes, so that these customers will be very happy and they will continue to purchase them from you going forward. Also, try your hardest to get these nukes out as early as you can. Obviously, especially in the northern climates, that's a tricky thing. When do I start grafting? When do I start pulling frames out of these survivor colonies? You really do want to try to figure that out so that you can start as early as you can, so that number one, your customers will get their nukes when they want them and when they need them, and so number two, you can have enough time in the year to repair things that may have gone wrong in your own operation. So if you can get all your nukes out by mid-June, you've got a lot of time left in that year to repair any problems that you may have or make a couple more nukes for yourself to overwinter. If selling queens is your profit source of choice, then I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It's super rewarding. Things can go wrong and not be quite so devastating as they are with nukes, but it does take a lot of resources to create a lot of good queens. So the same sort of rules apply for queens as they do to nukes, and that is, you really shouldn't be also trying to be a major honey producer while you're being a nuke provider, or while you're creating queens for sale, because of the fact that they both just require so much resources. So you can definitely sell honey in addition to nukes, and that is exactly what we do. But honey is a byproduct. It's a side effect. It is not the goal. You'll also want to figure out exactly what type of mating nuke you want to use and stick with it. So do a lot of research about your specific area. I made this mistake quite a few years ago when I thought that the mini nukes were just the best, and they are really good, really versatile. The only problem that I had with that is transferring these nukes at the end of the year into something overwinterable, which is quite difficult. So it ended up with a lot of wasted bees and a lot of wasted brood. And after I had purchased a couple hundred mini mating nukes, had to start purchasing 5-frame mating nukes. So do some research in your local area. Try to figure out all of the different things that will be advantageous and disadvantageous for those nukes, and try to make a decision that you can stick with. Of course, you're not going to know exactly how you're going to feel in 5 years, but if you do a proper amount of research and possibly ask some other local queen providers what they use and why, you'll probably be making a better decision than I did. If you don't know what type of nukes to purchase and you are just going to use this video as all of the research that you need, I would suggest just using regular 5-frame deep nucleus boxes, because of the fact that they're so versatile, and you can just pop them into a 10-frame box at the end of the year, or sell them, overwinter them and sell them, do any number of different things. They're the most versatile options there are out there. You may be dissuaded from selling queens based on the amount of local beekeepers you have near you. Number one, sell online, because it's way easy. You don't have to really invest a whole lot in infrastructure for that. It's basically putting them into a box with some holes poked in it, or an envelope with some holes poked in it. A lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about the Postal Service, but we've had some pretty good luck. And usually when something goes wrong in the delivery of it, that queen will still survive and still show up okay. You'll be sitting on the edge of your seat for a day or two, but usually she's okay. Obviously, if something does go wrong, that is on you as the queen provider to provide them a new one, but you shouldn't have to pay for shipping for that. So if a queen dies in transport, charge your customer for an extra bout of shipping and send them a free queen. Okay, so now that we've discussed some of the different profit sources, let's discuss different plans of action depending on how many hives you have or how many hives you want to have eventually. Under 10 hives. For under 10 hives, it honestly is just a really, really good opportunity and a good size for selling local honey and wax and propolis and pollen and all of the different things that you can gather from the hive that aren't bees. You can make a lot of money in this way, and you can build quite a big customer base that would give you an ability to grow if you wanted to in the future. But trying to sell nukes or queens at this level of hives is pretty difficult, and it can put you in a tricky situation where you sold just a little bit too much, or you devoted just a little bit too much to a particular round of queens. Something happened to your production colonies, whether that's a bear or some high mite load or a couple of swarms took off, and you're in a bad situation where you have a lot of work to do to repair your operation before the fall starts. So I highly recommend, for under 10 hives, sell your honey, get a good honey label and logo and some nice artisanal jars. Try to invest in some comb honey equipment, maybe get a pollen trap. Utilize all the different resources. You could create candles, you can create soaps, you can create tinctures, all these different things that will create a lot of interest in your products locally and make you a decent amount of money from your relatively meager investment. 10 to 50 hives. At this level, you have a lot more freedom in which profit source you go toward, but I still recommend honey because of the fact that it's easier, and at this level, you can make a considerable amount of money. You can satisfy quite a few local stores and farmers markets. You can make quite a bunch of honey from 50 hives. The same problems exist in trying to sell queens or nukes as they did at 10 or fewer hives, in that you can get yourself into a tricky situation where some bad stuff happened to your production colonies and your devotion to your nukes and queens limits your ability to repair it. If you do decide to sell nukes at this level, please take my advice and sell around 50% of what you can produce. That will give you a safety net in terms of repairing your own operation, and it'll also allow for you to take care of any issues that may have happened with the customers and the nukes that they bought. It is still my recommendation at this level that you don't take pre-orders, but once again, if you do, take them for about 50% of what you think you can produce. If you don't be afraid that you won't sell your nukes, because once again, the demand in May, June, and early July is quite high, and I promise you will be able to sell at least the vast majority of what you produce, especially if when people ask you if you're selling nukes, you say, yes, I'm selling them, but I'm not taking pre-orders, so you can definitely plan on getting one from me. But I'm not going to take your money right now. Selling queens at this level can be tough. I don't want to dissuade you from doing it. It's just that to create a bunch of queens, it takes a bunch of resources. I mean, it's surprising how many bees you've got to put into a single cell starter to create between 40 and 60 cells. And those 40 and 60 cells have to go into 40 to 60 mating nukes after, 12 days. So you really have to devote an incredible amount of bees and resources to creating each individual round of queens. So at 10 to 50 hives, it can be difficult to do this at any appreciable level. I don't want to dissuade you once again from doing it, because that's when I started and I met some success and I learned a lot and I sold quite a few queens at that level. It's just difficult. You've got to run around trying to figure out where am I going to take bees from this time, and how am I going to make bees or make enough nukes for the rounds to come in the future. Definitely start at the 10 to 50 level. If you really want to sell hundreds of queens in the future, you're probably going to want to raise your level up to maybe 100 or so hives eventually. But start off selling locally, because once again, those people are going to be continued customers, and those people are going to tell their friends, and you're going to create a lot of local business where you don't have to go out of the way to go to the post office and put a queen in the mail and risk losing one of your precious queens. So at the beginning, 10 to 50 hives, sell queens locally. Try not to devote anything into honey or nukes at this level, because you're really going to stunt your queen operation. At 50 to 100 hives, you really truly have the most freedom at any of these tiers. You can do any of them or all of them. Just make sure you realize the things that I've been saying previously, and that is honey production and nuke and queen production are sort of contradictory. They both take a lot of resources. So don't say that my 100 of 100 hives are all going to put up honey, but I'm also going to sell nukes, because you're going to be taking a lot of resources from these 100 hives and limiting their ability to create honey. It's a better option, in my mind, to have honey as a side effect. Try to create as much nukes as you can, and at this level, you will definitely still create quite a lot of honey. So sell 80 or 75 or 80% of the nukes, or devote 75 or 80% of the amount of resources that you can to the creation of queens, and you'll still put up quite a lot of honey. If honey is your main deal, you are going to want to try to get out of the beginner extractor situation as quickly as you can. These last couple of years with a smaller extractor have taught us that in a big way, where we're end up spending every day for a week or more extracting honey just constantly. So definitely try to graduate out of the beginner equipment as quickly as you can. Get a nice honey label and some nice jars that you can stick with. And then once again, honey is a much easier thing to sell if you've got all the different forms of it. So get some creamed honey, get some comb honey, get some honey sticks, get some little squeezable bears, some big 4-pound jars. Have something for everybody. Okay, so that is my bit on how to make money from your bees. The big takeaways should just be essentially try to make your decisions early on, figure out exactly what it is that you want to do in years going forward. That'll give you a better ability to buy the right equipment and to not shoot yourself in the foot in terms of buying a bunch of comb honey boxes only to realize that you want to sell nukes. You are going to make mistakes though. If you ever have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below here or any other video that we've got. Either way though, I appreciate the heck out of you guys watching. If you guys are interested in other science content, I've got a BK Curiosity channel. The last video that we did this last week was on some of the most major ice ages the Earth has ever seen. And we also have a Patreon. If you are really super inclined to want to help us financially to be able to create these videos going forward, you can go to patreon.com/BKBs. We'd appreciate the heck out of that. But most importantly, we just appreciate the heck out of you watching. Thanks for being here. Get out there and have some fun with your bees. See ya.